I think having undiagnosed ADHD all through my childhood is really, it has the potential and may have up until recently ruined my life. Like, it makes me feel like I don't have what it takes to do almost everything because of all the failure that you have from zero to the moment you realize what's wrong.
It takes a lot of courage to share your story, to amplify your voice, to turn your mess into your message, your traumas into triumphs, holistically speaking. But what I've learned in this age of podcasting, and definitely in my 30 years working in broadcasting and also in mental health, is that there are so many more stories to be told. And that's really what empowers us, is being able to use our voice. And Jessica Kupferman is making that her mission. Now, you might be asking, who's Jessica? If you're in the podcasting space, you most likely know who she is. She is co-founder of She Podcast, which is an incredible supportive group for women and those who identify as women who are taking up space at the microphone, doing the podcast thing, right? And she is also a guest on this week's Holistically Speaking. She's sharing her own story, sharing her own voice about what it's like to be a podcaster and a woman and someone who is amplifying in an undeniable way. You're going to learn more about that. How she takes ownership of her ADHD. I'm hearing a lot about ADHD working in the mental health space, and really it's causing a lot of us, even as we reach midlife, to wonder, is this something that I'm dealing with? We talk about that. Also, we talk about what it's like for her, or what it's been like for her, to lose a child to a heroin overdose, and how she has used that experience and it's become her strength and compassion to show up for others. The importance of finding humor in the healing, and of course, what it means to be undeniable. The theme of this year's She Podcast Live, which I am so excited about. It's happening June 19th through the 22nd in Washington, D.C. I will be there as one of the speakers about how to be mindful at the microphone. And I'm going to be sharing more about how you can put active emotional well-being into your own hands with havening. We're going to do some self-havening at that event. Plus, podcasters out there, listen up. A chance for you to join us in DC if you haven't bought your ticket already this June. I've got you. I've got an awesome discount code for you to be there in the room, in the space with us. It's going to be an amazing couple of days in DC. We're going to have a good time. In fact, I am even going to put some time aside while I'm there that week to do one-on-one self-havening sessions with folks. If you are interested in getting in on that and signing up for a session with me and learning about this amazing neuroscience that I use every day in my practice, just go to holisticallyspeaking@gmail.com. I will put it in the listen notes along with that discount code for She Podcast Live. And just put podcaster in the subject line, and I will write you back personally with more information about how you and I can work one-on-one during this amazing event, because there'll be some time. There'll be some downtime for us. And listen, talking about amplifying, I want to hear from you. I want you to share your voice on the show. I've been making some changes here, as you know. My last episode, 119, as I was talking about reaching the big 5-0, I wanted some sage words of wisdom from listeners, and I got so many people that got back to me just by sharing their voice. And I want to do it again. I'm going to do this more because I want you to be a real part of this show, not just a listener, but a participant if you want to be. And here's what I'm asking. This is the big question this week, and this is going to be great because it's for an upcoming episode. This week's big question I'm asking you is, this is a simple one. What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? It can be the smallest thing. It could be a cup of coffee. It could be your favorite lip gloss. It could be your family. It could be just waking up in the morning with the two gifts that give you the opportunity to see. I want you to share it with me. Just share your name, where you tune in from, and go to speakpipe.com/holistically speaking and share your voice. But it's not just you sharing your voice, because I'm going to pick a lucky winner of those folks that submit. And you're going to have a chance to win the Grateful People's Journal or the Coffee Table Book, which I absolutely love. This is an upcoming guest on my show, Teddy from Grateful People's. He is the founder. And It all started with that coffee table book of people just submitting their gratitude moments. So I want to hear from you because gratitude is something we need to talk about. And I've talked about this before, that if you start your day with 2 minutes of gratitude, you have a 27% more likelihood of having a good day 6 to 8 hours later, right? This isn't the first time I've shared this. So give me those gratitude moments because that creates a space for more gratitude. And you might win a Grateful People's Journal or coffee table book. This is such a gift. I can't wait to share this with you. All right. All of that will be in the listen notes, but I think it's time to amplify and get undeniable with Jessica Kupferman. Take a listen.
We have been planning this one for a while, Miss Jessica Kupferman, and I am so elated to have you here on Holistically Speaking. You are a dynamo in the world of podcasting, especially holding space for women or those who identify as women. So thank you so much for being here and creating that space and amplifying that message.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you at long last.
At long last, two ships pass in the
Yes.
night, we finally meet.
Marvelous.
You're such a ball of humor too. And every time I have watched you and connected with you in any way on social media or just in general, I find that there is such humor behind so much of what you share, which I think is, someone who works in mental health and holistic health, there's humor in the healing. And you definitely make a really profound space for that, like really create a space for that. And I'd love to know, like, where does that really come from? Is that really part of your whole being, your entire life?
My dad, pretty much. My dad has a really good sense of humor and it's similar. I've had a lot of like observational lessons and cues from how he jokes with other people. But yeah, I mean, like he's been funny my whole life. His brothers, he's funny with his relatives. His mother was pretty funny. She was actually like a vaudeville showgirl, my grandmother. So she was,
awesome.
like when people tell stories about that side of the family, it's usually either about my grandmother or my father, because the other two are like, not as exciting or eccentric as the two of them. So, and also my mom was my dad's biggest fan. She thought he was hilarious and laughed at his jokes and encouraged him to be ridiculous. And I think I kind of caught on. I don't know that I've always had no, I think I have. I mean, like your humor doesn't really shine until I would say like high school was probably when I started to say what I was thinking. I mean, part of it is having ADHD and not having the wherewithal to think before you speak. So I would say what I was thinking, even if it was, not ridiculous, but like, insulting to other people. And I would say, doesn't your mother, whatever, and everyone would laugh because they were thinking what I was saying. So, when people laugh, that encourages you to also be more, abrupt, abrasive, humorous, sarcastic, whatever it is.
And I think like something I've learned, just because I feel like I've come from that place too. Like I like to have humor behind everything. There's humor in the healing. There's humor in not wanting people to laugh at us. So when we're creating the space for the joke or the comedy or just being a little witty, it's really the fact that you don't want others to laugh at you. So if you have a space or a stage where people can laugh at what you're sharing, that's a much better option, right? Especially when we're kids, because we're so impressionable,
Yeah, I mean, now that you say that, a lot of my humor now is about making other people feel comfortable. I joke about myself, about a situation. I'm pretty intuitive without being empathic. So like I can see when people are uncomfortable and I try to like humor their way out of it for them, like by saying, I know this is a ridiculous situation, but we'll just do this and then we'll do this. And then usually people relax. I will also say that from having ADHD, I'm not very comfortable around people who can't laugh or who are too serious. And so if I will make like an intro joke, like a let's see if this is funny kind of like if they don't laugh, I instantly hate them. like they're dead to me. Because if they can't have like a laugh about the weather or whatever, we're done here. We're done here. I'm can't be comfortable. I cannot relax around people who can't laugh at stuff. Even if you're having a grumpy day.
Yeah, it's like crickets.
Most people will laugh even if they're grouchy. I can always make someone laugh, even if they're especially grouchy. So if it's not coming, then clearly they don't have a sense of humor. If they don't laugh at me, it's over. It's over between us.
You're dead to me.
That's the rule. That is a rule.
You're dead to me.
But because though sometimes I'm trying to make myself comfortable or them comfortable with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're refusing to do that, who needs you? Who needs you?
Mm.
You know, I mean, because the purpose of it, is to hold space for that, but also to like, it eases tension. Laughter eases tension. And that's sort of what I feel like I'm good at, is being a judgment-free zone, easing tension in other people, making them feel comfortable with me, comfortable with themselves, comfortable in the environment. I don't know. Maybe my skills are not being put to proper use of what I'm doing. Maybe
See, that's what I'm here for, Jess. That's what I'm here for, to help you find
I don't know what job requires you to make other people comfortable besides a terrible job like hospice. Like, what job can you can't joke with those people. So like, that's not the job. So what's the job? What would be the job?
Coaching, girl.
I have
coaching. Help people like help people mirror back what they don't see in themselves. That's what I do. I mean, as both a practitioner and a coach, every day it's about helping you see parts of you that you don't see in yourself. Right? Isn't that what it's about? And then help you amplify that message.
Yeah.
You'd be a great coach. You're already a coach. You are a coach.
I think I'm a good coach, and I have tried it before. I believe that it was the follow-up from the coaching sessions that was not my forte, and it sort of made me feel like yes, we had a great session, but like, if I can't bullet point it and folder it and give it to you or organizationally, then I've failed them somehow. So I sort of felt like I wasn't doing them justice. But I do like giving people advice. I've also wanted to do like an advice column. I think that would be a good job for me.
I think
Jess.
I would love to see that, but do it like Ask Jess, and do it like on the podcast platform too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like,
that's exactly what I
was
thinking.
The new Dear Abby.
Exactly. Your favorite.
It was like
Dear
humor
Abby.
And sass.
Yeah.
Amen, I love sister. It. See, this is a space to kind of creative ideas are flowing, you know. That's Holistically Speaking has many different avenues that are going on here. But I want to touch on something you just you see, you're welcome. I'll send you the bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we're
Therapy's
done.
Amazing. By the way.
I know. I'm incredible, aren't I?
You are.
I want to touch on the ADHD though. That was something I wasn't aware of about you.
Oh, really?
And is that something that you found out? No, I didn't. I didn't know that. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but that's just coming up for the first time. And I'm curious because we're seeing more people in their later years. You know, you're not finding that out when you're in high school or younger. A lot of people are finding it out later. Like, I've got this. I'm kind of all over the place, or and not just saying that's what it is, but or I'm losing focus, or I'm hyper visual, or whatever it is, and they find out later that you might have something that, or you're facing something in your life that puts a name with it that helps you deal with it. Was ADHD something that you found out early or later?
I was 19, actually. I was in college.
Yeah.
And I had sailed through high school. I went to a very small high school, like a small town place. And I had I have still a photographic memory. So for every test, they would give us like a study, like a practice test, and I would memorize it. And then I would get an A's on the test. So when I got to college and they were like, we need you to read 30 pages by Thursday, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That sounds like a lot of work. No, thank you. And I could not do what they were like wanting me to do in any class. I was starting to fail every class. And this is a person who had I wasn't a genius, but I had like a 3.4 GPA, which is not nothing. Mm-hmm. So I thought I was college material. No, I am not. I mean, like I got through college, but it was a huge struggle because I was spoiled. So, I mean, like this goes back to like when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I could read by the time I was like 4. I was reading to my kindergarten class who couldn't read yet. And so I went in school year early because I was so gifted when I was young. And then we had a gifted and talented elementary school. And my mom wanted to put me in that. And they were like, well, she's already ahead. Let's just see how she does. Well, consequently, I was very bored because I was in regular school. And so it turns out I coasted from like 1st to 12th It was very easy, easier than it probably should have been. So I have no study skills. So by the time I got to college, I mean, you can't really coast. This is a lesson if you're listening and you think you cannot coast in college. You have to actually do a lot of reading. They don't go over everything in class. It was quite a shock to the system, I must say. And so I was like, well, I don't know what's wrong with me because I've been a good student up until now. So I went to a shrink. I mean, and clearly, like if you have any logical sense, you could be like, well, part of what's wrong is you're not doing the flipping homework. Maybe you should try that or something. But it was too hard. I could not do it. It was too much. I didn't have the focus. Couldn't figure out like how come everyone else seems not to have a problem doing hours and hours of homework and I can't bring myself to do it. And so they tested me. I found out I had ADHD and I did nothing about it for like 10 years. I just flailed around, got fired a lot. I finally finished college. I had 2 kids. And it wasn't until I was 29 or 30 that I decided I would take medication and get my life together. But it took a long time. And I think people with ADHD don't like to take medicine, which is also not a good, trait. But there is something about that. Like, I don't know. It's really weird. There's a very strong instinct in my body not to medicate myself for anything, headaches, anything. I hate medicine. I do take my ADHD medicine religiously, though. Now that I've started it, I will never, ever be without it, ever.
I think it says something to have made a decision back when you were 19, because I think in this day and age, especially, and I'm a college professor too, kids are more open to talking about their mental health, which I love, and I incorporate different methods in my classroom to help my kids through, because a lot of them are dealing with stress and overwhelm and then take on the internet. And that's a whole nother medium that we didn't really have when we were in college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much an overwhelm, right? And it's so good to see that you took control of that at 19 at a time when we didn't really talk about those things, right?
Yeah.
You kind of just sailed through and think, oh, all right, maybe I just have this problem, and or you think it's you and you take it in personally. And of course, it took you the 10 years to really kind of get a hold on it, because you're like, this is a complete change in my life. Like it's almost like the scarlet letter on us in a way. Anytime there was something weird,
True.
Oh, you go to therapy. We didn't talk about those things,
It's
and
true.
now there's like a clear space for that. It's good to see this generation really taking hold of their emotional well-being in a more powerful way. Of course, there's more overwhelm available. But
I love so much that you're attributing that to me. But the truth is, I was an out-of-state student and I was failing. And my father was like, you better figure this out because this is an expensive problem for you to have. Don't fail. I'm paying for it. Figure it out. And so I was like, okay, guess I'll go figure it out then. I mean, yes, I did.
Yeah.
But I was definitely encouraged by the fact that I was in a, if I'd gone to University of Maryland, maybe nobody would have ever noticed. But the fact that it was like whatever 30,000 a semester, whatever it was, I don't even remember. But the fact that it was expensive, my father was like, "Wait, what are your grades again? Wait, what? No, we're not doing that. No." I mean, he was like ready to bring me home unless I figured it out. So I figured it out. But I mean,
so give yourself credit for figuring it out.
I will, and also my father likes to threaten me into doing what's best for me, which is not a terrible. That's not a terrible experience. It just is what it is. So yeah, it's a good thing to pass on.
So as a parent, how is that transferred for you and transitioned for you to hold space for being as a parent, with that being present?
Well, all 3 of my kids have ADHD. I'm not sure about my oldest simply because she seemed not hyperactive. But she definitely didn't and she also could focus on stuff she wanted to focus on, but I know that's like hyper focus. But the boys are definitely have issues. They don't listen. They refuse to listen even when they can hear me. They, they kind of are on their own little planet. It was different. My daughter was much more malleable at a young age, whereas I have a 7-year-old who I have to I feel like if I'm not screaming, he won't move. I have to say things in the most polite manner 10 times. And then the one time I'm angry, he goes, which why is that necessary? I mean, but to me, that's I'm not in danger. It's like, it's kind of reckless. Like, I'm not in danger. Nothing's going to happen. Like, I'm busy doing something else. I can hear her, but I can't really hear her. Like, all of that's ADHD.
I have a
So
feelling there's a lot of parents who listen that are going to resonate with that message. I
yeah,
don't think you're alone in the battle.
when my little boy was 3, the oldest one, Nathan,
Mm.
when he was 3, he was kicked out of 3 daycares in 2 weeks. Nobody would keep him. He was just like, I don't know, like running with throwing chair, whatever he was doing. They didn't want him to do it. He was kind of like a danger to himself and others. So we had like a psychological, what's the thing when they involve themselves, like an help me out here, Hilary. Intervention, I guess, where he had to go, be assessed, and they figured out he had ADHD, and I agonized over him giving him medicine because he was so young. But they told me that, with ADHD medication, you take it in the morning, it's gone by the afternoon. So really no harm done if it doesn't work. And it's very mild. So like, it's not going to do much because he's so little. So they gave me a tiny dose. I gave it to him. We were in the office. We gave it to him within a half hour. He was doing a puzzle and he goes, "Look, mommy, I'm so busy." And he was so excited that he could sit and do a puzzle and not be running around the room like a maniac. So instantly I knew I had done the right thing, because I thought, if this creates a situation where if you don't medicate your kid and they misbehave in class, or they can't behave in class, not necessarily misbehave, the other kids look at that kid like, he's a jerk. What's he doing? Why is he interrupting? The teacher calls them out. Now the kids don't like them, both because the teacher doesn't like him and because they think he's being a jerk. And you're just socially crucifying your kid by not getting them help in some way. So that's why I continued to do it. Not because he could do a puzzle, but because he was already becoming socially stunted at that age by not being able to, keep a friend, because he was always getting in trouble. It was awful. So now with this one, with my latest creation, Isaac, he kind of has, he has 1,000 billion friends, but he's very, but again, he doesn't listen. It's not just to me. He puts himself, he can be in dangerous situations because he doesn't listen. And the homework thing has been an issue with him. It was never an issue for the other ones. I mean, it's so interesting how kids are different, how it manifests itself in different people, but it really has allowed me to look for that from the beginning, like because I know that I have it, make sure that they have what they need and that I advocate. I mean, and you think, parents who think like, I'm just going to get my kid medication, and they'll be great through senior year. No, you have to advocate for them constantly. There are teachers that don't follow the plans that you've laid out. It's a disaster from start to finish. So like, it has really, me having it has allowed me to understand his side, I think, more than parents who don't. It's allowed me to advocate for them better because I really do know what they need, because I'm just like that.
Yeah, definitely. And some parents, there are parents that I have run into who sometimes, if they think that it's because of them, they don't want to deal with it, because then it's a reflection on what kind of parent you are. And it's like, yeah, but then you're not putting your child first. You're taking the ego stepping in. And I see this a lot. And I think another thing is, from what you mentioned, being in the classroom, it's very sad, is that kids need more social and emotional learning tools. Right.
Oh my God.
We're seeing this.
Amen.
I'm an advocate for this and that's
Absolutely
basically the work I do. I mean, the havening is putting the tools in their own hands. If kids have more time to meditate or self-regulate in the classroom instead of going to detention and learn what you did, because they're not learning anything sitting in detention. Let's go send them to your room, go learn what you did.
Right.
Right. But they're not learning or progressing in any way by sitting in their thoughts, because then they're just sitting in the negative thought, right? Give them something that empowers them, and that's, we can talk about all day about that one, because I'm a big fan of the SELs and giving kids the tools, right?
I think having undiagnosed ADHD all through my childhood is really, it has the potential, and may have up until recently, ruined my life. Like, it makes me feel like I don't have what it takes to do almost everything. because of all the failure that you have from 0 to the moment you realize what's wrong, which is why it's also sad when you, like, especially later in life, when you do find out you have it, you think of all the things you could have done differently if you had only known how to tackle this issue that you're struggling with. But I mean, as a child, it's like, you don't know why you're failing, why you're different, why teachers keep saying not living up to full potential. I mean, that's like, I don't think I realized until very recently how that's affected my self-esteem. That instead of sitting down at a teacher meeting and hearing about yourself, she's so creative, she's so intelligent. I heard her handwriting is terrible. She talks through class and she's definitely not living up to her full potential because she's very bright. And instantly I'm just like, I think I just felt like a loser all the time. And it's like permeated so many things that I've attempted to do, So it's terrible.
Totally.
It's important to,
We just want to fit in when we're kids. As kids, the most important thing is to feel like we fit in. And I remember one thing that always was on my report card, and I remember it to this day, is that it said she marches to the beat of her own drummer. Now that sounds like a positive thing. Yeah, that sounds positive. But when you're a kid, it's like, I don't want to beat to my own drum. I want to fit in. I want to be a part of things, right? And then you feel like you're alienated because you're like special or different. And
I think that would infuriate me. I think you're right. I wouldn't want to hear that. I mean, we know now it's a compliment.
As a kid?
No way. I'd be
but as a kid, we hear the literal. Yeah,
like
it means we're alone in the battle.
Everyone else is singing one song and you're tap dancing over here. It's terrible. You're right.
And it didn't feel good as a kid. Yeah. So like we have to be very careful with the words we choose and the words we use, not only with our children or if we're educators with the kids that we teach, but on ourselves. I mean, we are our own worst bully, and we go into this place of like inner bully. We are like the worst kid on the playground towards ourselves first. And much of that comes back to the childhood trauma or what we were dealing with or what we have not dealt with. Right. So it's holding space for yourself too. And then being more powerful as a parent and going into that space and saying, it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to be in that moment where you're feeling that. Don't try to deny yourself that. That's part of who you are and it's beautiful, And I hope we're moving more into that space. At least I'm trying to amplify that message. But yeah,
I do feel like
that's why we resonate with each other.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I also see in my youngest, like he's the only one that was taught yes, please, and no, thank you at age 2. And no, thank you also meant get away from me and stop what you're doing. Because he would go, no, thank you. Like, which means you're an asshole, right? Like, but he was taught to say it to get to create boundaries. And when we say
I was just going to say the word boundaries.
When we were taught no thank you, it was a polite way of hoping that the person would stop bothering you. But he as a baby did an aggressive no thank you, daddy, and so maybe it's just his temper, but also like he now can say, oh, I feel sad, which is something I'm very proud of. And I mean, I know whether I personally taught her that I'm not, I know that that's being taught and reinforced in school, that he's taught to say how he feels and really get into, are you sad or are you hurt? Are you sad or embarrassed? Are you sad or angry? And he can tell me, which is not something I think my oldest 2 could recognize this young at 7,
And I love that you're touching on boundaries and giving a child the ability to understand that, because the sooner we learn how to say no to others, which also means many times saying yes to ourselves, the more empowered we're going to be in life, right? But if we're always trying to appease other people, always, and look, as empaths, that's our jam, right? But we have to learn to like say yes to ourselves first. And if it means saying no to somebody else, it doesn't mean I'm selfish. It means that I need to be a little selfish in a good way, or I'm just going to be walked over from my whole life. And then I wind up being in a narcissistic relationship and I'm in a job I hate and I don't like what I do. And I don't know how to say no in order to please myself.
I mean, I struggle with that. I think
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't.
Yeah. We're pleasers. We're pleasers.
I'm kind of jealous of him to just be like, I'm not going to that. Like any birthday party, if it's like, if it doesn't sound like an amazing time, he's like, no. I'm not, no, it's hot out. Where I'd be like, oh, birthday party. Where's, it wouldn't even occur to me to say no. as a kid.
I can just see this little kid going, I don't think so.
Oh my God.
That's
One of
cute and
our
everything,
neighbor-
but it's not happening.
One of our neighbors came over to ask him if he wanted to play like a couple weeks ago, came over with a friend and we're like, Isaac, someone's at the door for you. And he goes, I'm good, and shuts the door in the kid's face.
I love it.
I was like, that's not nice. And he goes, I didn't feel like going out. He was like, oh well,
I'll
ski.
tell you. I think the next thing that's
I'm
going to
very
happen
jealous.
with this little one is he's going to be like, yeah, check my calendar. He's going to have his own Calendly.
If I could adapt his ability to push out the unpleasant for him, I would be in a completely different place in my life. For just to be able to be like,
Hilarious.
that's not happening at 7. I love that about
So
him,
great.
actually.
That's so great. That's
Yeah.
amazing to witness that at such an early age.
I know, because we're so bad at it.
We are. So can we talk a little bit about Emily? Because,
Absolutely.
being a mom and sharing the space, and I really appreciate you opening up on this story, because I know there's many that'll resonate with this, but, you lost your daughter. And I'd rather you share the story if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think she was prone genetically to mental illness, probably on both sides of her family, but specifically on her father's side. And I think, she ended up at the end being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but it's something I probably saw the beginnings of at around age 11. But, she was 19 before I figured it out, because I was Googling her behavior. But from, I would say, middle school, I have found psychological evaluations from when she was 8, and it was like, she's oppositional, she's this, she's that. And when she was 8, I think I was like 29. I had no idea what to do with this information or how to treat it. She seemed she was doing okay in school. She had friends, it all went swimmingly until about age 11. And then the first thing that ever happened she did that was weird was she had a best friend that lived down the street, and they were bestest friends in 5th grade. And we went away for Christmas break. And then the first day back from Christmas break, she came home furious. And I said, what's the matter? She goes, I hate Alyssa because she has a pink backpack and that's dumb. And I was like, what are you talking about? You guys were just best friends like 10 days ago. She was like, well, I'm only wearing black and my backpack is black and I don't want to talk to someone with a perky pink backpack. And I was like, I don't know who you are, but alrighty, that sounds great. But it was as if she had switched personalities or preferences with no warning or rhyme or reason. And then from that, it went to her. That was like 5th grade. So like 7th grade. So now we get to middle school. It's not the nicest middle school, but she went there because she was in something called the International Baccalaureate Program, which was like a special program that helped kids. Like, I don't know, it was supposed to be more like private school. It was not, but it also was not based in a very nice part of town where nice children go to middle. This is a terrible thing to say, but they were neglected, troubled, whatever. So she was with a lot of juvenile delinquents in this school, and she just became one of them, even though she's not one of them. Like up until this point, I divorced her father when she was like 3, so she doesn't really remember that. And then she got a stepfather when she was 6 or 7. So 3 loving parents, a nice home to live in, 2 nice homes to live in, support, understanding, a younger brother, and yet she's like, telling everyone that she's from a not nice part of town and that her dad, works all day and they're alone. Just complete and utter horse pucky. And she started dressing like this or hiding. I don't know, like she would stuff a bra. She didn't even have a bra, but like I would hear from a teacher, she's stuffing her bra. And I was like, what bra? What bra does she have at 11? I don't even know what you're talking, but she would borrow them or steal, not steal, but she would borrow them, etc. And so that turned into her deciding later, 8th, ninth grade, that she was a juggalo. Do you even know what that is? Please say no. I hope you don't. But it has to do with a
I've heard
band
that.
called the Insane Clown Posse, which
Mhm.
is a band that came out when we were young. But, they put clown makeup on. They have a little symbol they like to wear. But it's like, I don't want to say it's a cult because I don't think they kill people. But I mean, it's very culty in that you either are in or you're not. And so, she would paint clown makeup on her face, and she would only interact with these types of people on Facebook if they were a juggalo or not. I mean, honestly, I knew that my children would find a way to irritate me with something because that's just what children do, right? They find the exact opposite thing that you want. And for me, I thought that would be country music. It never occurred to me that it would be a clown-faced baboon singing about like magnetism or whatever they drink blue Fago. Like none of it made sense to me. When I asked her what she liked about it, she would say, "These people are like my family." I was like, okay, you're Jewish. Your grandmother is the oldest of 10 children. Okay. You have a family. You don't need more family, especially not these people. This makes no sense. But in her head, it was like, she was just like playing this part. Then she went from Juggalo to Southern Belle. A year or so later, she started wearing pearls and cardigans and telling everyone that she was from Tennessee. She has never been to Tennessee. We've never taken her outside of the tri-state area. Okay. If this is what she wants to play, that's fine. And it just kept changing and changing and changing.
Mm.
I wouldn't say that her behavior got better. It was certainly, like at 14, she went to see, this is where I think things really got terrible. Her grandmother. So when her father and I had joint custody, and she would be with me for a week and then him for a week, and me for a week and then him for a week. And when she was over there, her grandmother lived there, Gail. And it was probably Gail that took care of her because her dad was struggling with he doesn't now, but was struggling with some alcohol and substance abuse stuff. So she would spend time with my mom, Gail, and feel safe regardless of what her father is, her and Nate both. And then around 14, Gail decided she wanted to move to Florida and took Emily. She just didn't feel like being in Delaware anymore. And so, Rob was going to have to find his own place to live. She wasn't going to be there anymore, but decided, it would be fun if she took her bestest friend, Emily, down to Florida to look for a new house together. And Emily acted out terribly while she was down there, and then came back and told us that she had lived through some horrible tragedy that we could find no evidence of. And that's where things really got crazy. It was like, she told us that she had been abused and went to survivors of abuse and rape therapy for 2 years. And then she started fiddling with alcohol in high school and telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about when I said, alcoholics drink by themselves. If you're not an alcoholic, why are you constantly in your room drinking? And she told me I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay, I guess just say no is a dream I had. But it started becoming, actually what happened was she drove my car, and she was inebriated, and she drove on the wrong side of the street, almost killed herself and her boyfriend. And I told her she would have to ride the bus, and she refused. I said, "I'm not giving you my car. You have got to ride the bus to school." She said, "No." I said, "Well, the other option is rehab." Okay. So she went to rehab instead of riding the bus, which is probably better because, she was probably an alcoholic at that point and needed rehab, but it did not get better. They sent her after rehab. So the rehab that I went to was a place in Pennsylvania, and they have step down programs that I think give them kickbacks. So like there was one in Florida, like a I guess a sober living environment in Florida that she could go to where people go and relax and they, get better, and they have, outpatient therapy. And she really wanted to go because that's where Gail lived. And I was like, "No, you're 17 and you've never been away from home. We're not doing that." And they convinced me that it was the best thing for her. So I sent her to Florida by herself for rehab at 17. the rehab up here in Pennsylvania, Marmont, that she had been going to. They really convinced me that she needed it. She wasn't ready to go back to high school. And I was like, nah, she's just going to finish her degree. And they were like, no, we think she needs this like other 2-week thing. And I was like, fine. Well, the second she got there, and the second she was on her own, she kept trying to escape to go to her grandmother's house. She, actually what happened was she would meet a boy and somehow convince that boy to drive her to her, to her. It was like 2 or 3 boys that really felt like they were in love with her. And I felt so terrible for them because I was like, like I didn't even know how to tell them. It was all, and so she was in and out of rehabs for about 2 years. And somewhere in there, she started to mess with heroin. And that, that was about a year in. After she stopped trying to flee to her grandmother's house, she I guess was in a rehab where you had access to this. She also told me that she didn't have the same credibility as the other people in rehab because she was only an alcoholic. So this somehow encouraged her to do drugs. And again, I didn't understand, these are all things that I didn't, in her head. First of all, and now that I know she was borderline, in her head, these things were absolutely true. It was absolutely true that she could not have any credibility in rehab as an alcoholic because if she didn't do whatever they were doing, she couldn't speak to helping them and vice versa. So in her head, that seemed like the logical next step. But then once she had taken that step, she couldn't stop. Like she thought she would be able to stop and she couldn't. She thought it would be no big deal if when she wanted to stop doing it, she could. And then, I don't know how long you have here, but I ended up kidnapping her from Florida. I tricked her into thinking she had to come back here. And then we put her in a sober living place here for about a week. And then she lived with me for 7 months and she was perfectly sober for about 7 months. And then, there started to be some stressful situations here at Delaware. Her boyfriend was going to prom. She didn't have her prom because she hadn't finished high school. She was a year older. Things started to be stressful and she relapsed and I had to send her to rehab again. But this time I was like, no, we're not doing this 30-day in and out, run away. I'm sending her somewhere she cannot run away and somewhere that works on mental health and not addiction, because this was just not working. When you are mentally ill and you're in somewhere for 30 days, they barely have enough time to get to know you, much less dive into your psyche. So first I Googled all these symptoms. See, one of the things she kept doing in rehab was she would switch one and then tell them a different thing about herself that wasn't true. So one time they thought her name was Alaska. One time they thought she was a twin. One time she had a Boston accent that she wouldn't drop because she told everyone she was from Boston. And it was actually, that was the most freaky thing because I was like, you do know this is an accent that you don't really have, right? And she kept keeping it up and keeping it up. And I was like, I might call the mental hospital unless I hear you say I'm not from Boston. And she goes, Mom, okay, I'm not from Boston. That's what I told them. So leave me alone. And so when I went to go Google these symptoms, when I went to go Google these symptoms, I was like, okay, not every addict is like making up personalities at every, seems Emily's special thing. So that's what I Googled and I found borderline. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. She has every symptom. And then I found a place that specialized in borderline, which was in Utah. So I sent her to Utah. And it really worked. She was clean. She had goals. She met a girlfriend in there. And that's, she went to go to sober living. And at this point, like she had been in and out of rehab so much, I couldn't really afford where her girlfriend was going. Like her girlfriend came from a wealthy family and she was going to a place that was like $3,000 a month. And I was just tapped out from 2 years of rehab. So
emotionally too.
Emotionally too, but like,
yeah,
$3,000 a month is more than my mortgage. Like I just couldn't do it. I couldn't afford it. So, I found a place that was safe and gave her a scholarship, etc. And it was rough for many reasons, but she ended up having after Thanksgiving, she ended up having terrible cravings and wanting to come home. And I kept telling her no. And then she relapsed, went to her therapy, told them she relapsed. They gave her a written set of instructions as to how to like manage, didn't check her pockets, didn't detox her, just said, here's what you do. Call a friend. It was like the dumbest list I've ever seen in my life. Sent her home and she overdosed with whatever was left in her jacket. So that is a very brief version of it, but I wanted to, highlight the quirkiness that I ignored because she was artistic and a very good artist. She was creative and an Aquarius, you know how they are. So like, I ignored a lot of these little personalities because I thought she was just, having a good time, expressing herself, exploring her identity. I didn't think it was like a bad sense of self or that she was, I don't know. I just wish I had thought of it earlier. I wish that one person, one psychiatrist would have caught on to that earlier, because by the way, that thing that she told me that happened to her in Florida never happened. She went to survivors of abuse and rape for 2 years and it never happened. But it was just the thing she was wearing at the time. She needed to wear this robe of personality. It's been a very interesting and confusing experience.
I think what I want to share is that you sharing your story, I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing this about Emily and just being a mom, being able to share that, because hopefully it'll touch, move, and inspire one person to take a deeper look at what's going on with their own kid or kids.
I'm sharing a lot of the semantics and not really how I felt about any of it. And that makes it easier to share, certainly. Because there's no really way to describe how you feel as this is going on. It's just like constant panic, really. I mean, I would just say, if one person is listening and thinks their kid is acting out and they're not sure what to do and they've tried a bunch of things, I would say look into borderline personality disorder, and because there is treatment. It was too late for her. She was already also a heroin addict, and that's not easy to treat. So
no, and a parent can't do that themselves. You need support, the right kind of support,
certainly
and
shouldn't.
the first step in any and the first step in any change in anything is awareness and being open to the possibility that there's something that needs to change here. So thank you for that, Jess. And just a reminder, if this podcast, listening to Holistically Speaking with Jess Kupferman, who is the co-founder and co-host of She Podcast, we're going to talk about that for a few minutes too. If this touch, moves, and inspires you in any way, consider sharing it with just one person, passing it along, and just listening to this conversation, because these are the kind of conversations that we need to amplify and hold space for others to hopefully make a difference. I mean, that's what we're here doing. So thank you, Jess, for that. I want to move into this space. You're welcome. I want to move into the space of She Podcast while we have a few minutes left. Like I mentioned, you're the co-founder and co-host of this amazing just group of women. And I guess now we say those who identify as, right? I mean, we have to be open and inclusive and diverse, but this growing group of over 21,000, which I'm a member of as well. And I love the connection with people. I've made so many dear friends and had people that I've had on the podcast because their stories are unbelievable. So thank you to you. And also, I mean, there's two of you behind this, and I want to give you the space to talk about that, because this was not something you planned to do, to be a podcaster. So, you're kind of a marketing whiz.
I was a blogger and graphic and web designer and social media consultant. And I felt like I needed a different way to get my personality out there. Because when you're just writing, I mean, I'm a good writer, but it's not the same as hearing someone. So I actually had a friend invite me on her podcast. And like instantly I was enamored with it because she was like her own Tonight Show host. And I've always wanted to do that. So I decided I would start a podcast. Actually, what I wanted was to be on more podcasts. And then when I looked at the lineup of podcasts, I realized that, they were mostly men interviewing themselves. And so I was like, they're never going to have me on. I'll have my own. I know a billion women that have amazing stories, and I'm going to interview them all. So that's what I did for years. And then when I wanted to grow it, I went to a conference where I met my business partner, Elsie Escobar, and I met about 6 or 7 other amazing women podcasters. And when I got home from that experience, I wanted them to be like my little hive mind so I could ask them more things. They were more experienced than me. So I started the group with 6 people, and then Elsie asked me if she could add a few more. And then all of a sudden it was 100 people. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing, because it's a place where it's a really, I mean, through the years, Elsie and I have like created systems and made house rules, but from the core, it's meant to be a safe place where you can ask a question without being judged and be given the best possible answer for your situation without having other people's opinions pushed on you. It is very respectful, the way that they support each other in the group. And I think we've curated that very specifically over time. So it is a special place. I'm very grateful. But no, I didn't plan it. It was just meant for me. And then it just sort of turned into something else, which is great.
It's such a great place. And it's just a place where it feels like a sorority in a way, but in a good,
Definitely.
Positive way. That it's a sisterhood of people that we all have a voice. And look, there are over 3 million podcasts out there and growing. And majority are still men holding that space. And we have a story to tell, and we have our own place in this world to amplify. And so I appreciate it. So thank you to you and Elsie for creating this place. And that continues to grow. And that moves us into like this world of like the She Podcast Live that's coming up. Really looking forward to that. I'm actually really elated to be one of the speakers at She Podcast, which is going to be in DC. We're going to have
I'm very excited to have you.
kick-ass time. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to sharing more about dealing with the overwhelm and mindfulness behind the mic, and just sharing more of that brain candy out there. But do you want to talk a little bit about She Podcast in a moment we have left? And then I have one more thing for us to do.
Yeah, She Podcast Live, like she said, it's happening in Washington, D.C. It's meant to be part conference, part school, part retreat, part, like she said, sorority party. We try to make it really fun. We try to make it really fun. There's lots of wellness opportunities for networking. And it's just sort of like an in-person extension of what the group is, which is the community teaching each other, supporting each other, inspiring each other. So it's really fun.
Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah, I agree. If anyone is
and I'll share that in the notes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'll share all the registration and notes. We'll get everything. I just wanted to give you the space to share. But in closing, before I let anyone go, because I know you got to be out of here, and I'm very mindful of people's time, I want to play a little game with you real quick. This is just a little word association. I'm going to throw out a word at you, Miss Jess, and I want you to come back with the first word that comes to mind.
I love games. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to close my eyes.
Okay. Oh, good. I like that. All right, here we go. These are just words from today. Humor.
Me.
I'll agree with that. Undeniable.
Event.
Yes. By the way, I don't think I said the word undeniable, but that is the actual theme of She Podcast Live this year. So I'll just preface with that. ADHD.
College.
Mom.
Sherry. That was her name. I mean, I always think of my mom. She died when I was 30. So that was around the time that I decided to have my own business. And that's when I decided to take care of my ADHD. It's because of her. So even though we talked about me being a mom, she's always on the back of my mind too.
Of course she is. Why wouldn't she be?
Yeah.
Right? That's amazing. Yeah. All right. Overdose.
Emily.
Yeah. Podcasts.
Amazing. But that refers to sorry. Important.
No, go ahead.
And
yes, go back to podcast.
Podcast. So I say amazing because we're in the process of figuring out the speaker lineup and the content. And when I see, first of all, having everyone like that in one room, and also like choosing who gets to speak about what you learn, what amazing things people are podcasting about. And it is unbelievable. I feel so unworthy to be in the presence and friends with so many people who are sharing the most amazing podcasts ever. So when I hear the word podcast, I just think amazing because I know so many, including yours, of course, yours.
Girl, you're one of them.
It doesn't always feel that way, though.
Like you're one of them. I know. You're being hard on yourself because you're the one, you and Elsie have created the space to allow this to happen. So can we like hold some space for you, please? Thank you very much.
We can. Let's do that.
But I appreciate it. So let's just hold space for each other and namaste the crap out of this. Okay. But thank you.
And you said voice.
Namaste. Yes, voice. Did you answer
voice?
That one?
I would say important. That your stories are important.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I always say that my voice and connection are my superpowers. When people are like, what is your superpower? I'm like, it's my voice and connection. Like, that's it. I'm here to amplify, right? Ripple effect and make it happen. So on that note, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, being so vulnerable, you're being courageous, and just, I know that this will resonate with people. I know that you are creating an unbelievable space to create the power of voice and connection. So for you, I could just say thank you. But is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with, the Holistically Speaking podcast tribe?
The voice is important. Your messages are important, but your gut is also vital. To trust your gut. Don't doubt yourself, regardless of what it is you're dealing with. That's what I would say.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
I can only imagine after listening to this episode that you are going to want to learn more about She Podcast, more about She Podcast Live, and of course, more about Jessica. I'm going to put all of that in the listen notes of this episode. And don't forget that we are going to be at She Podcast Live June 19th through the 22nd. I'm speaking, Jessica's speaking. I'm going to be doing some self-havening there as well. All you need to do is go to the listen notes to register. I have an amazing discount code just for you if you put in the discount code HIL and use that code, get that discount, gives you more time and space, and we can even share a drink together. Plus, I'll be doing some one-to-one self-havening sessions. That's a really great opportunity for you to put the power of active emotional well-being in your hands if you are interested in learning more about havening. And I bet if you are attending She Podcast Live and you come to my event, you're going to want to learn a little more about it. But I'm going to be doing one-on-one havening sessions with folks who attend. All you have to do is go to HIListicallySpeaking@gmail.com, send me an email, put podcaster in the subject line, let me know you're interested, and I will get up with you personally. And all you have to do is put podcaster in the subject line, like I said. Plus, lots of stuff I'm throwing out at you this week, right? Don't forget an opportunity to share your voice. Just go to speakpipe.com/holistically speaking if you are interested in putting the Grateful People's Journal or the coffee table book in your own hands. I have the founder, Teddy, of Grateful People's coming up in a future episode. But before that, I want you to share what you're grateful for so that I can include that in the episode. And then we will announce the winner of the coffee table book and the journal. Go to speakpipe.com/holistically speaking. That's all you got to do. Share your gratitude moment. Okay, on that note, I have given you a lot to process this week. It is all good. I'm so grateful for you and my friends at Two Market Media for editing this episode, my friend Lippo Redding for always bringing the music. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for continuing to amplify your voice, to be undeniable. Be kind to your mind. Don't forget to laugh. I love you, and I'll see you next week.